Oh, and I think the boot of this gear shifter has been replaced as well. Okay, this is interesting. Ciao, I'm Mario, a Swiss car guy on YouTube, and if you see my videos, you know this is my sister's Fiat 500. In one of my recent videos I replaced an ignition coil on the car, and an overwhelming majority of about 2 comments wanted to see more of this car, so I thought I'd grab it and I'll show you more of it. Let's go! My sister has owned this car for 14 years almost. She ordered it in 2017 and she got it delivered, I think, in March of 2018. This is one of the very first Fiat Cinquecento that were delivered to Switzerland back then. And my sister still tells the story that when she would drive around with that car back then, people would give a thumbs up, they would love the car, they would wave at her, which is something that's really hard to imagine nowadays because these things are so common. But the reason why I thought I would give this car a go is because I think this car has its days numbered. Meaning that the condo association where my sister lives finally decided to put in electric car chargers in their shared garage, and she is looking into buying an EV. And the reason is not because this car is on its last legs, because even though it's almost 14 years old, it only has 118,000 kilometers, so it could easily go another 100,000 kilometers, another 14 years. But, you know, my sister bought this car new 14 years ago, and this is her first car and the only car she's ever had. And my sister, you have to know this, she is loaded, so she could afford to drive a much nicer car than this. Not that this isn't a nice car, but she's finally willing to upgrade to a bigger car, so I thought I'd use the chance to drive this car as long as it's still around. And being the fact that my sister is not exactly a car person, this car has not been treated too nicely. Meaning this car has probably only been cleaned when it went in for service at the garage. Maybe once or twice a year through an automatic car wash, but cleaning inside and stuff like that, not very frequent. And also it has curved wheels, it is quite dirty. Yeah, but that's kind of what normal people do to their cars when they don't really care too much about them. I have to say I haven't driven this car in a long time. A few weeks ago I test drove it after changing the ignition coil, but that was just to see if it was stuttering or if it was running normally. But now driving it, I realize it's actually quite alright. It certainly doesn't have power even in sport mode, because this is a 1.4 sport, it has 100 horsepower. And it's not a heavy car, it's about, I think, 1100 kilograms. Let's put it in sport mode. Yeah, not a sports car. So it's kind of typical for these small cars. It's nippy but not really fast. On the other hand, it's quite nice because on roads like these where the speed limit is 60, I can actually drive it with quite a bit of verve without really going over the speed limit, which is nice. This car has a manual gearbox and it is a 6-speed. You see, it's a 6-speed. And it's a nice little gearbox. It feels quite chunky to change the gears. The clutch is it's kind of light, but it's also very forgiving, so it's very easy not to stall this car, which helps me since I'm used to driving automatics. And all in all, it's, you know, like a typical Italian small car. And speaking of typical Italian small cars, if you've ever driven Fiat Panda, you will recognize a lot of it in a Cinquecento, because it has this raised center console with the gear shifter quite high up, the window switches on the center console, and also the seating position. The seating position is basically one-to-one Fiat Panda, which I understand is a compromise in a small car, but I think the seating position is this car's biggest weakness, because especially if you are a bit taller like I am, you sit very high up. The seat is adjustable in height, but you can only adjust the back part of the seat. So you adjust it and then the back goes up and down, but the front always stays at the same height. So it always puts you on this very awkward position to reach the pedals, to be able to press them nicely. I'm now sitting in the perfect seating position for this car, and I have to say it's okay, but you still feel like you're sitting on top of the car rather than in the car. It's driving these smaller, lower powered cars where you realize that going uphill can be a struggle for some cars, because the cars I drive normally, they all have, hundreds of horsepower. So if you go uphill or if you go downhill, it's always sort of the same. Whereas in a car like this, you have to downshift if you want to get up a gradient like here. You are in third gear and you don't know if you're gonna make third gear. Yeah, barely. And then you floor it in third gear. And then you have to go into second gear. Yeah, I mean, this is a small car. That isn't. An advantage of small cars, you can actually pass very narrow streets and you can park anywhere, which is a definite advantage versus the ships I usually drive. This car, being a 500 Sport, obviously has a sport button, and my sister was told back when she bought the car that the car normally has 60 horsepower and you push the sports button, it has 100 horsepower, which of course is absolute hogwash, because the car has 100 horsepower no matter when. It's just when you press the sport button, the pedal becomes more responsive. And that's it. Now you might ask, why didn't my sister buy an Abarth instead of just a regular 1.4 without a turbo? Well, the reason is quite simple. Back in 2007, when she ordered the car, there were no Abarth 500s. I think they came about in 2009, so like a year after she received her car. Otherwise, the Abarth, I agree, is a faster car, it's better, but even that car, I mean, back when it came out, I drove the SS with 180 horsepower, and it was fun, but again, we are in the small car realm where I have to say it's nowhere near fast. So in the end, it doesn't really matter that much which one you have. The high seating position makes going into corners a bit more frightening than it should be. And I think on the Abarth they counteracted it, especially in the later models, they have much lower seats. Because in this one it feels a bit top heavy, and I am just right underneath the glass roof, because this car does have a glass roof, it doesn't open. But this is generally a very well optioned car. It has the glass roof. It has the Interscope sound system. It has automatic climate control. Why am I going up here? Let me turn around. Shouldn't have come here. Something that really kind of annoys me about this car is it's got quite a large turning circle for such a small car. And I don't know exactly why. I remember that on my mom's old Fiat Bravo HGT, because the car had a transversely mounted 5-cylinder engine, which was so wide, the car had terrible turning radius. But this car, I mean, it has a 1.4, it cannot be that large. And for such a small car, I would expect it to have a better turning circle, but it doesn't. So while the car is actually small and nimble, maneuvering in parking spaces is actually more cumbersome than it should be because of the large turning circle. This car might have the same turning circles as my Lexus. And my Lexus is already not great, but this car's turning circle is like not good. This car back in the day came as standard with MP3 capability. It has a USB plug right here. I think you can also attach iPhones and stuff like that. But for some odd reason, this car is full of CDs, because my sister apparently listens to CDs, or she listened to CDs like 13 years ago and never took them out of the car. very odd. So, how well has this car done on maintenance and reliability? My sister actually wanted to pull the entire service history from the dealer because this is a one owner from new, always serviced at the dealership car. But the dealership, they only have the records back to 2018 because apparently they changed systems and lost all the data before that. So the dealership lost 10 years worth of maintenance data, therefore I cannot really give you a cost of ownership on this car. But I can tell you that not much has been wrong with this car. In one of my previous videos, you've seen me replacing ignition coil, and that's the most recent thing with this car. Ignition coils, they have started to go bad because, you know, over 100,000 kilometers, I mean, they are wear items, let's face it. The other thing is that this car has had quite early on in its life, and I think multiple times, I think the instrument cluster has been replaced because it would always show a temperature of like minus 10 degrees, even in summer. And apparently there was a fault with the instrument cluster and it was replaced. And I think it was replaced twice, but it was always replaced under warranty. Because when my sister bought the car, she also got a 5 years extended warranty, which in hindsight probably was a good decision. Even though I don't know how much such a instrument cluster would have cost. And otherwise, I mean, she would just have had a temperature of -3, which I don't think would have affected the car's operation. It's just really stupid that you never know what temperature it is outside. But other than that, there hasn't been a lot. I think tires, regular maintenance, and this car has been maintained somewhat regularly. My sister's never really put a drop of oil in it, but on occasion I have, because when I went to measure with this dipstick, it would be completely dry. So yeah, this is not a super well meticulously kept car, but it's also not a terribly badly kept car. Overall, I can say that this car has held up pretty well for 14 years. Even though I think in 2019, my sister spent like 3,000 francs on servicing the car, because not only were there already issues with the ignition coils and other things, but she also had the timing belt replaced, which shouldn't be such a big job on this car, but timing belt, water pump, and Zurich's very, very high prices for mechanics made this very expensive to service. And at that time I told her, don't do it, because, well, yes, she had to bring the car to the periodic inspection, but with old cars, my mantra is go to the inspection and they will tell you what is wrong with the car and what you need to do. And yeah, she just had all this work performed. It cost her a lot, but then again, the car still runs, and I think I already mentioned that she is loaded, so who cares? I have to say, although this is not my kind of car, because, you know, I like them big and fast, I still like it because it has character, and it's in general, it's nippy, it's fun to drive, and I think the most important thing is it looks really good. Even though this car has a few battle scars, because it's not new, of course, but it is a very, very attractive car. It's really pretty, even though, I mean, it is a retro design and everything, but this is just so well done. And even after 14 years, it still looks absolutely great. And if you're looking to buy one, even with a bit of age on it, I think these cars held up well. They haven't had a lot of problems. They are well built. I think they're built in Poland. And all in all, it's probably a very good car for somebody looking for a small car, looking for a second car, maybe a young person looking for the first car, because they are good cars, they are frugal, they don't cost a lot to insure, not much goes wrong with them, and as I mentioned, they look absolutely great. So I mean, even at 14 years old and with its battle scars, this thing doesn't look like a crapped out old thing. It looks still current, it still looks chic, it still looks fine. So I think the 500 really held up well. Anyway, that's all of it. That's all I have to say about this car. I don't know how long it's gonna stick around. Hey, if you're interested in buying it, let me know. Maybe you can buy it. It's one owner from new, right? But that's it for this video. Please follow me on Instagram and leave a comment. Write what you think about this little car. And also, Please leave a like if you like this video, share it with somebody who might be interested in it. And anyway, I'm done. Thanks for watching and have a nice day. Bye. Also, somebody really asked for an exhaust video, so I guess now we'll have the exhaust sound of this city car.